Should Final Fantasy VII Rebirth get some DLC for the most beloved characters and the characters we see in Rebirth, but we don't actually get to play as? We get to see Sid and Vincent appear very, very late in the game of Rebirth, and Vincent just kind of, you know, chills around with his arms crossed, and Sid is our, you know, our main way of travel later on in the game with the tiny Bronco. So should there be DLCs to give them their spotlight before we actually get to see them in part 3? I hope so, but I mean, the team's already said pretty much that's not going to be the case. So in this video, I want to go over, I found this article on Screen Rant actually, kind of given the pros and cons, I guess, of why they should have DLC. But before we do that, be sure to like and subscribe for more Final Fantasy VII content. All right, with that out of the way, let's jump into this article. It says, Sid and Vincent Valentine are both memorable FF7 characters who joined the cast in Rebirth, but neither of them get quite the same spotlight in the game as the proper party members do. Sid becomes the party's designated fairy, while Vincent mostly stands around with arms crossed at various destinations, but neither of them are playable in any particular point in the adventure. This sidelining also leaves them both with less narrative exploration, and their interesting backstories haven't yet been directly discovered or covered. Rebirth already introduces battle mechanics for Cait Sith and Red 13, so it makes sense that Sid and Vincent are going to have to wait their turn. Their status on the fringe of the game can be frustrating, however, and the deliberate avoidance of some key narrative elements surrounding the characters leaves them feeling a bit awkwardly upended. An intermission DLC could be a perfect way to address the situation for either character, and it would be the ultimate silver lining for the situation. Before we get any further, I would like to note that they've already said, I'm pretty sure multiple times, that the team, Nomura and all of them, have said that they have zero plans on doing any kind of intermission DLC for Rebirth. They want to focus on part 3, knock that out, get that done, and then maybe the world could continue. I'm down for that. I would love to get a Dirge of Cerberus remaster or just remake in general. Redo that game from the ground up. I would love that. I would love for Sid to get his own personal story. I could, however, see that being the case in part 3 and having Sid have his like own designated chapter to learn more about him and his backstory, and maybe the same with Vincent as well. So while them getting a DLC would be really cool, I could see them incorporating their DLC or their portion in actual chapters in part 3. I could see that happening. So we might just get that, but I would love to see a Dirge of Cerberus like remaster or remake. The status of Sid's backstory in Rebirth is currently unclear, as the party meets him in a completely different manner than the original game's encounter in Rocket Town. The first telling of the story introduced his character flaws off the bat and portrayed him clearly as a broken man, concepts that Rebirth does not address head-on. Rocket Town may appear for the first time in the next game and bring his backstory with it, but this approach would be a substantially late introduction. I'm very curious as to how they're going to handle Sid's character in part 3, because in part 2 he seems very happy-go-lucky, very positive, very not who he is in part 3. And I know that's a big issue people have right now with Sid, because he doesn't have his cigarettes, he's not a smoker, and he's not like angry at the world right now. I don't know how they're going to handle that. Personally, I think he'll, you know, that'll happen in Rocket Town when we get to Rocket Town. I just don't think he has a reason to show that yet. Anyway, a Rebirth DLC doesn't necessarily offer the perfect solution to the problem, but it would at least give him time to build some of the character arcs from his past, failing to his ultimate narrative fulfillment in the next game. Diving into the past to relive the original events of the Shinra space program could be one way to do this, but giving him a more recent adventure and incorporating flashbacks might also do the trick. So yeah, I don't know how they're going to handle this Sid issue, but I have faith, and I think it'll be fine. I think whatever they decide to do, and I think it'll still work pretty much. Just TLDR, it's going to work. It's going to be fine. As far as Vincent got a bigger spotlight than Sid did in the past with their Cerberus, a third-person shooter for the PS2 that picks up the events of FF7, or picks up after the events of FF7 and explored and faces Vincent off against a secret organization known as Deep Ground. This game we don't really talk about because it was not great. It was very clunky, and yeah, it was not great. So I would love to see them remake this proper and do it justice. Give us what we, you know, the story that we wanted with Deep Ground. Bringing Dirge of Cerberus back in a satisfying form would require more severe overhauls than a new version of the prequel Crisis Core did, but Square Enix hasn't left the concepts of the game in the past. Intermission pointed the spotlight at Deep Ground, who Yuffie ends up meeting in a tragic encounter, which was, I loved Yuffie's DLC with Deep Ground. It was complete, like, I was not expecting that, but I love seeing that and stuff. So I do hope they revisit that at some point, because it feels weird. We got, I think Nero is disgusting. He's just chilling, like he's out somewhere, I guess. So what they're gonna do with him, I don't know. I hope we see him again at some point. Probably with Vincent would make sense. With Yuffie's got to see him again. That would be a heartbreaking reunion or whatever, because that's, you know, if you played Intermission, you know. Another DLC could give Vincent a first scuffle with the organization, with the caveat that keeping the first game canon would require him to remain generally in the dark about their identity and motives. So it's hard to say for certain whether FF7 Rebirth will receive the Intermission DLC or not. I don't think it will, because they've already said multiple times that they are not doing DLC for Rebirth. I could see them doing DLC for Part 3 though, to expand on things and conclude the story of FF7 compilation as a whole. They've already said they want to pack everything that the compilation has in this Rebirth, or in this remake trilogy. So we're definitely going to be seeing more of Deep Ground and all that stuff from their compilation. They're trying to put it all in, you know, the first 3 parts, which we got with Part 1, and we got a bunch of hints and teases and stuff at stuff from the compilation in Part 2. So Part 3 is going to be like just a massive payout. They're gonna have to pack so much stuff in Part 3, because that's a lot of stuff to cover, unless they do DLC for Part 3. But let me know down below, would you guys like to see an actual like Rebirth DLC, or would you rather than just focus on Part 3, do Part 3, and if they need to do DLC in Part 3, as far as like maybe a Sid backstory that we don't get to see in Part 3, which I highly doubt that's the case. I really think we're going to get a big portion of the game, no, not a big portion, but a chapter, maybe a chapter or 2, focusing on Rocket Town and Sid and the space program, and then we'll see Sid become the angry Sid that we know. And then as far as like Vincent, I could definitely see Vincent being a DLC, if not waiting and then just doing Dirge of Cerberus remake remaster. I really think that could be the case. So, but let me know what you guys would want down below. I'm curious. But that's all for this video. For more Final Fantasy VII content, be sure to check out this video up here and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace.